When I was a kid growing up, music was the escape. That's the only thing that had no judgments. You know, you can put on a record and it's not going to yell at you for dressing the way you do. It's going to make you feel better about it.
It's always about being yourself and not being ashamed of being different or thinking different. I try and take everyone's ideals, common morals, flip them around, make people look at them differently, question them, so that you're not always taking things for granted.
If you were to talk directly to the kids at Columbine or the people in that community, what would you say to them if they were here right now?
I wouldn't say a single word to them. I would listen to what they have to say, and that's what no one did.
Sure. I think parents should spend more time raising their kids to interpret and appreciate music and art rather than trying to hide it from them and expecting them to deal with it on their own. I think if anybody, wants to react violently towards themselves or to others, they only have themselves to blame. You can't blame the rest of the world for the way you act. I think the artist has a greater responsibility than the politician or the religious leader. They have the responsibility of creating the way the skyline looks, the way this furniture looks, the way your questions are created, the way the camera works, and the way I paint and the way I sing. So it's a really important time for art to be the focus rather than politics.
And do you like to get people upset? Is that part of what fuels you?
I like to provoke people so they think. I think that's a healthy part of entertainment that you don't get too much from the Spice Girls. And I want people to think about what they believe. I want them to consider if everything they've been taught, if that's what they want to believe or that's what they've been told that they have to believe. I like to look at all different religions. I find valuable elements in, Judaism and Satanism and Buddhism and in Christianity as well. I think you can just take different things that you can apply to your life. But if you follow anything solely, that's as stupid as listening to everything that I have to say. I think that there's two levels to what I do. There's the artistic level, which is meant to reach people who are open-minded and enjoy things like music. And then there's the provocative level that's meant to piss people off. So the people that attack me are usually doing it because, in a sense, I'm telling them to. And they're so dumb. They're just really doing what I want them to do. Yeah. So I'm not offended by it. Everyone sees me as this bad person because of what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is in everyone. It's the part of you that no longer has hope in mankind, and you realize that, you are the only thing you can believe in. That's really the bottom line. People gravitate towards sensationalism, and the media feeds it. And you can either be manipulated by it or you can make it part of your art, and I just try and make it part of what I do. The two byproducts of that whole tragedy were violence and entertainment and gun control. And how perfect that was the two things that we were going to talk about with the upcoming election. And also then we forgot about Monica Lewinsky, and we forgot about the president was shooting bombs overseas, yet I'm a bad guy because I've sang some rock and roll songs. And who's a bigger influence, the president or Marilyn Manson? Do you know, I'd like to think me, but I'm going to go with the president.
Do you know that the day that Columbine happened, the United States dropped more bombs on Kosovo than any other time during that war?
I do know that, and I think that that's really ironic, that nobody said, well, maybe the president had an influence on this violent behavior.
I think everybody's got a presentation. Everybody looks a certain way because they want to convey a certain image. You look a certain way because you want people to listen to you in a certain way. I just think it's something that people need to think about more. In America, through the part of Christianity, we're raised to love everybody. And I think when you love everyone, that really depreciates the value of love. The things that I love, I would die for and I care deeply for. But I couldn't say that I loved everything, or it would have no value. The same thing. That's the sad thing that I learned most about religion over the past year, is that God exists more in art and in music and creativity than it could in any religion, because there's too much anger and fear and hatred there. Sometimes. I think sometimes when you're making a point, I don't think that my lyrics are overlaced with profanity, because I myself don't speak using a lot of profanity in normal conversation. But I think when you're making something aggressive and you need to get a point across, if you're angry, sometimes profanity is necessary. It's better to use a curse word than to hurt somebody. Well, I'm very much into philosophy. A lot of different philosophers that I've read over the years, like Nietzsche, Darwin, Freud, Aleister Crowley, and finally Anton LaVey. And fortunately, he's still alive, so I got to meet with him and talk about his ideas and things like that. And in America, Satanism is sensationalized and kind of misunderstood, and people associate it with worshiping the devil and things like that. But it's really a philosophy about individuality and self-preservation. It's about being your own God. And that's a lot of the things that I've agreed with, so that's why I became friends with him. But by no means is that the only idea that I associate myself with, because I incorporate a lot of different philosophies into what I'm about, including Christianity. There's a lot of valuable lessons to be learned from the Bible. I just feel that the way a lot of people interpret it, particularly in the USA, is very hypocritical, and that's what I try and open people's mind to, that there is different ways of looking at things rather than what we've been told over the past several hundred years. I watched so many movies when making this record, when people asked where the inspirations came from, more from films than anything. I was trying to make a very cinematic record. I wanted to make the musical equivalent to a silent film. To create something that people don't necessarily have to be able to understand English, but they can tell by the cadence of my voice, or like the melody, or the percussiveness, what it's conveying. So that was kind of my challenge. So that's why there's a lot of words that don't exist either. I started painting in high school. I painted and wanted to be a cartoonist before I sang, but it became something that I would do when I couldn't fit something into a song. And the golden age of grotesque became, for me, not just an album, but an era of expressionism. Thus, my choice of coming to Berlin, which is the birthplace of that art movement, and working with Gottfried Helmwein is a great inspiration.
Take some of your lyrics as, you'll understand when I'm dead. I mean, disturbed kids could take the lyrics and say, when I'm dead, everybody's going to know me.
Well, I think that's a very valid point, and I think that that's a reflection of not necessarily this program, but of television in general. If you die and enough people are watching, then you become a martyr, you become a hero, you become well known. So when you have things like Columbine and you have these kids that are angry and they have something to say and no one's listening, the media sends a message that if you do something loud enough and it gets our attention, then you will be famous for it. Those kids ended up on the cover of Time magazine. The media gave them exactly what they wanted, and that's why I never did any interviews when that happened, when I was getting blamed for it, because I felt that I would be contributing to what I found to be reprehensible.
So you don't believe that your songs reflect any kind of suicide wish or anything like that?
No, I feel that my songs talk about getting through feelings like that. It's a little bit of everything. I like to experiment with people's fears, see what motivates them, what scares them. And at the same time, I also sometimes mock the whole sensationalism of it all anyways. Sometimes it seems like I'm trying to be shocking, but I'm mocking the fact that people take it so shocking. Shock point's never been the point. It's just sometimes easier to get things across to people if you say it in a way that gets their attention more than something else would.
Yeah.
Anything can be misinterpreted. People can look at Christ on a cross and think, this is an image of murder, this is violent, this has sexual imagery in it. And it just, I think it's my job as an artist to be out there pushing people's buttons and making them question everything. And I respect you. Seeing how I've established that I would die for what I create, I can't live without it either. So art is what makes me happy, if anything does. It's my way of making life worth living. And the fact that I can share it with other people makes it even better.